Hello and welcome to All Top 5s. Regardless of your religious or spiritual beliefs, the idea of demonic possession is a terrifying one, and there have been many cases all over the world for centuries. This concept makes a great premise for horror films, but what about when it supposedly happens in real life? Here are 5 interesting cases, some well known, some not so well known, which leave me more than a little spooked. Number 5. Michael Taylor. In 1974, in Yorkshire, England, a man called Michael Taylor admitted that he had had a lustful relationship with the leader of his Christian fellowship group, Marie Robinson, and that he felt that he had evil inside him. This was after Michael's wife had discovered the relationship and revealed the details to the group. Soon after, Michael and Marie had a heated argument when Michael felt the evil growing. He received absolution from the vicar, but his behaviour grew worse and caused concern amongst the church. The vicar called on ministers with experience of deliverance and exorcism to help him free Michael of the demons within him. In October that year, the priests gathered with Michael in St. Thomas's Church in Barnsley. Throughout the night until 6 in the morning, they performed the ceremony of exorcism in a long and arduous attempt to cast out Michael's demons. The official statement given about the exorcism was as follows. In an all-night ceremony, they invoked and cast out at least 40 demons, including those of incest, bestiality, blasphemy and lewdness. At the end, exhausted, they allowed Michael Taylor to go home, although they felt that at least 3 demons, insanity, murder and violence, were still left in him. The fact that they claimed the demon murder was still inside Michael is really worrying, and the really terrifying thing is that afterwards, Michael had gone home and actually murdered his wife and pet dog in a violent fashion. The police found him standing in the street, naked and covered with blood. He was tried for murder, but was acquitted as he was declared insane. That's a really scary case of demonic possession that makes you wonder if he shouldn't have been kept at the church that morning to exorcise those last 3 demons. Number 4. Clara Jimana Saleh. Here's an older case of possession, this time from 1906. At St. Michael's Mission, a Christian convent in Natal, South Africa, 16-year-old Clara displayed some terrifying demonic activity and underwent a long exorcism. Originally an orphan, Clara had been baptised when she was still a baby in Africa. Although she wasn't reported to have displayed any unusual behaviour throughout her childhood, when she was 16 she confessed to her priest that she had made a pact with Satan himself. A nun who witnessed the possession wrote that Clara could speak and understand several languages, such as Polish, German, French, and others that she had never learned before. Another nun wrote about Clara's guttural animal-like voice, saying, "No animal had ever made such sounds, neither the lions of East Africa nor the angry bulls. At times, it sounded like a veritable herd of wild beasts orchestrated by Satan himself had formed a hellish choir." Apparently, Clara could also mind-read, taunting those around her by revealing their darkest secrets that she couldn't possibly know. She had an aversion to sacred objects and had incredible strength as well, reportedly being able to throw the nuns attending her across the room and causing bodily harm. She was also said to have levitated high in the air in different positions. Interestingly, throwing holy water on Clara made her snap out of her possessed state. The priest to whom she had confessed her satanic pact called on the director of St. Michael's Mission to attend an exorcism on Clara to drive away Satan's presence. One report states that the 2 priests spent 2 entire days performing these rites. Clara allegedly knocked the Bible from one of the priest's hands and tried choking him with his robes. Despite this, reports state that the exorcism was successful and Clara was released from Satan's grip. Now, there's not a huge amount of information or many sources about this case, but apparently Clara displayed just about every bit of demonic behaviour on record, making this a really intriguing example. Number 3. Roland Doe. One of the most famous alleged cases of demonic possession, the case of Roland Doe, or sometimes known as Robbie Mannheim, in the US in 1940s, led to the novel and film The Exorcist, probably the biggest possession story of all time. The boy is, to this day, still anonymous, but has been labelled Roland Doe and Robbie Mannheim. I'll refer to him as Roland. Roland was allegedly exposed to a Ouija board by his spiritualist aunt, as he'd shown interest in the board. After the aunt passed away, the family began experiencing weird sounds, moving furniture, and levitating objects whenever Roland was around. Frightened, the family called upon their pastor to help them. The pastor, upon witnessing this activity, referred them to a Catholic priest. Roland was taken to Edward Hughes, who performed an exorcism on him at a university hospital. While this exorcism was being conducted, Roland reportedly managed to free one of his hands from its restraint, reached under the mattress, broke a bed spring, and used it to slash at the priest. The wounds sustained to Edward's arm meant that the ceremony had to be stopped early. The family moved on to St. Louis to stay with relatives and get in touch with Professor Raymond Bishop and his contact in the church, William Bowden. Both men paid a visit to Roland and claimed to witness a bed shaking, objects flying around, and Roland talking with a guttural growl, showing disdain for any holy object. William then decided to perform a further exorcism. Two more priests, Walter Halloran and William Van Roe, came to assist William Bowden with this ceremony. Walter claims that as they began, marks began to appear all over Roland's body, including words such as evil and hell. Later on in the exorcism, the mattress of the bed began to shake violently, and Roland managed to break Walter's nose during his violent outbursts. He reportedly went on to live a normal life after this final ritual, however. There have been claims of exaggeration and religious scaremongering, with a lot of the details of the events either being hyperbole or explainable. Certainly, Roland himself was often known to be a difficult child, prone to playing mean tricks and having terrible tantrums. Who knows what the truth really is, though? Number 2. Elizabeth Knapp. Looking centuries back into the deeply religious colony of Groton, Massachusetts, a well-documented case of demonic possession was alleged to have occurred from 1671 and into 1672. It's a really in-depth and bizarre case written by Samuel Willard, a Puritan preacher in the colony who had first-hand experience with Elizabeth Knapp's possession. Elizabeth herself, 16 years old at the time, was a servant in the preacher Samuel Willard's household. Samuel began to notice that Elizabeth was acting strangely and tentatively thought that there were signs of demonic possession. Despite this, and highly unusually for the time, he adopted a very scientific attitude and actually called upon a doctor to examine Elizabeth to eliminate any medical explanations or possibilities. When the doctor was unable to explain her symptoms, Samuel began to treat the case as a possession. He began to document each one of her fits and other disturbances carefully. Elizabeth grew worse as time went on. She would grab her legs, neck, or breasts and scream, often about strangulation, and often went from hysterical laughter to uncontrollable crying and screaming in an instant. She began to hallucinate, claiming that she could see two persons with her, and another man who floated around her bed. During her fits, Elizabeth's body would contort horribly, and she became violent, yelling, "Money, money, sin and misery, misery." A month later, Elizabeth confessed to Samuel that she had met with the devil, who had offered her money, eternal youth, and a way to see the world. The devil had also showed her the book in which other women had made blood pacts, and urged her to kill other people and herself, although she refused. These claims lasted until she fell into a catatonic state after a 2-day fit, and claimed that she had finally made a pact with, and slept with, the devil. She spoke in deep animal-like growls, insulting Samuel and his position in the church. Samuel's account went quiet for over a month, but after this he began writing again, claiming that the devil had taken almost full control over Elizabeth's body, controlling her actions and speech. After one more fit, she fell silent for 5 days. From there, Samuel stopped his writing, leaving the case to those more learned, aged, and judicious. We don't know what happened to Elizabeth Knapp after this, but Samuel Willard's incredibly detailed scientific and logical account leaves me in no doubt that at least he believes it was a true case of demonic possession. He went on to be the voice of reason in the Salem witch trials 20 years later, so he certainly seemed ahead of his time in terms of reasoning and caution. A really intriguing account that deserves its place in my list. Number 1. Anneliese Michelle. This is the absolutely terrifying account that inspired the excellent film The Exorcism of Emily Rose. I recommend watching it because it's a brilliant movie in its own right, not just as a horror film. In 1968, in Bavaria, West Germany, Anneliese Michelle was diagnosed with epilepsy after experiencing a strong convulsion. She was also treated for depression in her late teens, and when she reached 20, she began experiencing strange occurrences. She grew more withdrawn, became even more religious than she had been before, and began to claim that she saw the face of devils throughout the day. Anneliese was prescribed strong drugs for her epileptic fits and developing psychotic behaviour. By 1973, Anneliese began to hallucinate whenever she prayed and heard evil voices damning her to hell. Despite visiting a psychiatric hospital and getting more treatment, she became worse and developed a deeper depression. Slowly, she began to show an aversion to religious objects and holy places. By this point, her family and Anneliese herself was convinced that she was possessed by demons and that she should request an exorcism. Each priest they approached denied her this ceremony and told her to continue her medical treatment instead. Anneliese became even worse, self-harming and becoming more abusive and violent towards others, eating insects and drinking her own urine. By 1975, over 5 years since she began showing these signs of possession, a priest called Ernst Alt decided she wasn't epileptic after all and urged the bishop to allow an exorcism to be performed. The bishop granted this, but on the condition that it remain absolutely secret. Once the exorcism was confirmed, Anneliese and her family disregarded medical treatments entirely, ignoring the drugs and relying only on this ceremony. A priest called Arnold Renz performed 67 exorcisms on the girl over the course of 10 months, some lasting for hours. The priests claimed that the demons in the girl spoke to them through her, naming themselves as Lucifer, Judas Iscariot, Nero and Hitler. There were many more. Anneliese refused to eat towards the end of these exorcisms and talked about dying as a kind of martyr to atone for the sins of others. Sadly, she died afterwards, with the autopsy stating the cause of death to be malnutrition and dehydration. Indeed, she weighed a mere 68 pounds, or 30 kilograms, at the time of her death. She also apparently had pneumonia. Both priests, Arnold and Ernst, were prosecuted, as were Anneliese's parents. After a long, painful trial, the ruling was that the priests be fined, and the parents let off, as the judge ruled that they had suffered enough. It is a tough court case to decide, and is the main point of the movie that I mentioned earlier, but the argument is essentially religion versus science, at least that's what it boils down to, and that's definitely a hard one to debate. Whatever you believe though, poor Anneliese certainly displayed some terrifying behaviour. And that's it from All Top 5s for this week. This was a really dark, heavy subject, so my apologies if it scared you. Go and watch one of my happier videos, Top 5 Smallest Animals for example. As this was quite a dark subject, please do be considerate in the comments. Feel free to discuss it, because it's really interesting to have a healthy debate, but, you know, let's be friendly to one another. If you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube, maybe add it to your favourites. It really does help me out, and you can subscribe for a new video every single Tuesday. Peace and love to each and every one of you, sleep well, and I'll see you all next time on All Top 5s.